the launch of Generation Unlimited in India, a mission that we call YuWaah. Now, YuWaah is about essentially preparing a whole generation of young people for a rapidly changing future of work, and even more importantly, for active citizenship and societal leadership. We've spent about a year so far in preparation for today, in which there have been an enormous number of consultations with many stakeholders, business leaders, government leaders, people from civil society, and most of all, hundreds, probably over 1,000 young people. And that's what's led to the design of YuWaah today. Now, one of the things that the consultations really brought out is the need for very different thinking if we are to truly achieve our mission. And so, I reminded us of what Einstein said, that the problems of our time cannot be solved by the same thinking that created them. And I want to talk about 3 ways in which we have tried to depart from the past. The first is how we frame the problem itself. The great science historian Thomas Kuhn said that the answers you get depends on the question you ask. And for too long, we have defined our challenge as essentially one of creating employment and work for our young people. Of course, the issue of jobs and employment is of enormous significance and importance, politically, socially, and economically. But we think the challenge is actually more fundamental and more important, and which is this: how do we tap into the aspirations, the energy, and the talent of this generation of young people to create the biggest ever army of problem solvers, change makers, and leaders that this world has ever seen, who try and take on every problem that we face as humanity and as a country. And that includes the challenges of climate change, of extreme inequality, the challenges of mass extinction, environmental degradation, and so many more. It turns out that this generation of young people is doing things today that my generation couldn't even imagine or dream of. All over the world, including in our country, youngsters, they're flying drones, they're making custom robot applications, they're taking waste like plastics and turning them into useful products, they're building mobile applications to solve their community's problems, they're attacking problems of waste and sanitation and so much more. The challenge for us is, can we increase the number of such young change makers by a factor of 1,000 or even 100,000? Because only then will we be able to make a big dent in these kinds of problems. And so YuWaah is essentially designed to do that, to engage millions of young people and support them in taking on such challenges. And later today, we're going to talk about how we're going to do this. Now, just the other night, we were at dinner with Shaheen Mistry, who has built Teach for India. And she talked about a young boy called Rehan. Rehan lives with his family in a municipal garbage dump in the city of Ahmednagar. And he's living between festering mounds of garbage. And instead of being crushed by this, what he has done is organized all his young friends, and he's running 10 community centers in the garbage dump and doing things like recycling and working with the municipality to actually remove the worst of the toxic waste. And then Shaheen says, Rehan is 12 years old, and most of his friends are even younger. And what she reminded us is that Rehan is not really looking for a job. He's looking to do something much more important, which is to change the world. And our greatest hope as India and as humanity lies in many more youngsters like him. The second thing that the consultations told us is we really need to rethink education and skilling. We're living in what people are calling today the 4th industrial revolution. And we're moving from a period of linear change to a period of exponential change. And what we need to do is prepare this generation for the world that they are going to, rather than where the world is coming from. Much of our education has been designed at a time when access to information was difficult. And so ingesting content was a big part of the pedagogy. But as people like Ray Kurzweil have pointed out, any child walking down the street with a cell phone today can access all the world's information and knowledge. So more than ingesting content, we have to prepare them for a world which people are now increasingly describing as VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, where uncertainty is the only certainty. A world where fixed jobs of the kind that you and I have known is giving way to a much more fluid structure of gigs and projects. And therefore, we have to imagine ourselves less as employees and more as freelancers and entrepreneurs. A world in which the half-life of knowledge is dramatically collapsing. I read the other day that the half-life of, or the relevance of an engineering degree today is somewhere between 18 months and 5 years, depending on the discipline. So in a sense, the goalpost is moving so fast that it's pointless to try and think what jobs will exist and what skills will they need next. What is much more important is to give people learning agility, the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn new things, not once in college, but constantly throughout their life. So the World Economic Forum has pointed out with now strong evidence that more than vocational and technical skills, what people need are what they call 21st century skills, soft skills, things like creativity and problem solving, knowing where to find information, how to work in teams and collaborate and so forth. And the psychologist Carol Dweck has pointed out, hey, you know what, these skills are important, but what matters much more to success is mindset. And particularly, she's pointed out the importance of what's called a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and the importance of tenacity and grit as the greatest determinants of success. Now, these kinds of things can't be taught in a classroom. They can only be learned experientially, and they can be learned through apprenticeships, they can be learned through projects, and that's actually good news, because that's much more fun, and it's much more doable, because we don't have to fix the whole education system to begin to engage young people in these ways. The final thing that the consultations told us is, these problems of skilling and education and employment, they're hard problems, and that's why they're called wicked problems, actually, by economists. And that they're wicked problems because it means government alone cannot fix these things. Businesses alone can't work in silos and fix these things. What we need to see is business, government, civil society, and most of all, young people coming together to learn together and find solutions to these problems which can be replicated in millions of locations. And so when we designed YuWaah, we actually did just that. We have designed it as a collaborative effort, a collective effort, a coalition, an alliance that's coming together. Today we have 30 organizations which have signed up to support, create, and shape YuWaah. And that includes all the relevant ministries, it's Niti Aayog, it's a couple of state governments, nearly 10 companies, iconic names, lots of civil society organizations, FICCI, CII, NASSCOM, UNDP, World Bank. It's just a wonderful, wonderful list. Our aims for YuWaah are very, very ambitious. Over the next decade, we aim to do 3 things. First of all, create pathways to good jobs and economic opportunities for 100 million young people. We aim to equip 200 million young people with the skills that I talked about, which they need to flourish. And finally, we want to engage 300 million young people as problem solvers. The good news is, although we're launching YuWaah today, the work has begun quite a while ago. There's a lot of momentum. Already the team has launched the landscape report, which maps who are all the actors across these 3 pillars. What are the solutions that exist? We've done a number of design workshops where we've identified solutions which are robust and can now readily be taken to scale. Today we'll be launching our Youth Challenge in partnership with Atal Innovation Mission. In 3 months, we're going to be on the ground in our first state, which is Punjab, and soon after that, we hope to be in Maharashtra. I could go on and on and on, but I recognize that Suman's holding up the time card. So let me just end with this letter from our Prime Minister. He apologized he couldn't be with us personally today due to other commitments, but has strongly endorsed and supported YuWaah. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to building this mission with all of you.